Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Keegan, and welcome back to episode 3 of Sundown, a one-way conversation about the Gold Coast Suns. Before we get underway, make sure you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos on this channel. Without any further ado, let's get into it, and there is a lot to get into. So, I didn't release one of these last week. I pretty much because I was in Amsterdam. I was playing footy in Amsterdam in the European Championships, so I didn't get to watch the Fremantle game, and because of the time difference on the Saturday, I was actually busy, so I only got to catch the first half of the West Coast game. So I can't give you sort of an in-depth view of the game. I can pretty much give you an idea of the highlights and basically the statistics that I took from it. But to be fair, I'll tell you now off the top, the bubble has well and truly popped. The Fremantle game looked like we were okay. We lost by, I think it was by 5 goals or something, around 5 goals. So it wasn't a purely awful perspective. But that West Coast game, where I watched the first half, I'm sort of glad that I was busy and couldn't watch the second half because, by God, we were awful. It was just like the team that we had in the first 2 rounds that were tackling, chasing, harassing, just disappeared. Yeah, it was pretty poor. We just got absolutely bullied and outran. And to give you an idea, to halftime in the West Coast game, we had 10 tackles, and that for any game of AFL is just not acceptable. Especially considering in round 2 we had something like 93, 94 tackles, and to go from 93, 94 in one game to 10 and a half is a huge difference. Now, people will say that it is because of the travel and because we had to stay over in Perth, but I'm not buying that. You can be outplayed on the day, you can be outran, but you can't have a lack of effort. And Stewie Jew brought that up in the post game press conference. He said that that players on the field chose when to give effort and chose when not to give effort. Where there were probably a couple of players that probably over the 2 games gave 100% effort. Players like David Swallow, players like Jared Lyons, players like David Swallow, Jared Lyons. Tom Lynch had a go last week, but from what I could see, but Alex Pearce played him really well. But there's not a lot of other players I could say that gave 100%. It's really, really, really poor. And after having a really great 2-0 start, we are now down to 2-2, with next week's game against Brisbane being vitally important. If we can get the win against Brisbane, we're 3-2 after 5 rounds, which is actually not too bad. Admittedly, we haven't sort of beaten anyone, but 3-2, we will be looking okay heading into the tougher run of games. I think we've got Adelaide after Brisbane this week, Adelaide away, which will be very, very hard. But if we turn it 2 wins and 3 losses and we lose to Brisbane, then a lot of doom and gloom is going to come over the club. And that's not, after the positive start we had to the start of the season, that's not what I want to see. I think with just looking at the highlights, looking at the statistics and judging off the first half I saw for West Coast, there are too many players that are not playing to their best, or maybe just aren't good enough. There could be a bit of a mix in there. Players like Michael Riscatelli now, he was a pretty good recruit, and he's been a pretty solid recruit from Brisbane when we got him all those years ago, and he's played some good football at times. But at the moment, I think the game's just passed him by. He's just not showing what I would consider to be AFL grade football. I reckon if he was to go back into the NEAFL and to be a solid role model to players in the NEAFL, I reckon that would be a lot better for us. But at the moment, he's doing his best, but unfortunately, at this point in time catches up with everyone, and he is just not good enough. Another one that I would like to bring up is sort of Nick Holman. First 2 games, he was absolutely amazing. Tackling, pressuring, tackling, pressuring, doing everything right. Third game against Fremantle, he was okay. But this week, he was pretty poor. He only had 7 touches, and he had 3 tackles. Now, Nick Holman being a second chance player off the rookie list after playing the Sandford, being brought in to put that pressure on, his job is to tackle, and if he's not laying tackles, then he's sorely lacking in other areas. He doesn't really have the class of a lot of other players in the AFL, so he has to use that grit, determination, and tackling ability to keep his spot in the team. And if he can't do that, then he opens himself up to being dropped. And there are a couple of players in the NEAFL that I will talk about in a bit that I reckon could come into his spot. Just looking down the list of players, it's like players like McPherson, who I gave a pass because he's been all right, but he needs to pick it up very quickly. He's had a few good games, so I'm willing to give him a bit of leeway because he's been there. He's playing small forward, and we don't really have our top quality small forwards either to pick from. We've got Callum Archie, who is injured. He's coming back from injury very soon. We've got Lemons with a fractured hand, so he's probably not coming back till after the week bye. So McPherson is just filling in for us because we haven't really got anyone else to put there and to challenge him for his spot. He's been okay, don't get me wrong, but he could be so much better. And yeah, there's just a couple of players. There's a couple of players I won't mention that I feel are not performing to their top standards, and to be fair, aren't performing to the standards of AFL players. So, with that being said, Brisbane this week. Now, Brisbane are coming off an absolutely stinging loss to Richmond. They scored 17 points, which is the lowest score they've ever scored in their AFL history as the Brisbane Lions. So, they're going to be coming out fit and firing this week. And to be fair, when you play a local game against the local rival, all form goes out the window. And I reckon that we could be in some serious trouble if we take them too lightly. We have to go in there 100% ready to go, at the man, at the ball. And if we do that, I reckon we can win. If we play to our best, I reckon we win. There's no issue about it. But if we don't turn up to win, I remember vividly round 1 last year against Brisbane where we let them kick the first 5 or 6 goals on us straight away, and that would pretty much put us out of the game. We actually came back. We ended up coming back and only losing by 2 points. But at that point, when you're 5 and 6 goals down, you don't deserve to win. Simple as that. So this week we need to come out and we need to put together a good game, a great game. We need to pressure the man, pressure the ball, get those turnovers and get it forward. Now, I understand our disposal efficiency for this season has been super, super poor. But Brisbane are also a team that's around about our level, so their disposal efficiency isn't going to be as great either. So it's going to come down to who puts on the most pressure, who puts on the most tackles, who takes their chances when they come. And that is something that we haven't been doing very well lately. In the first half against against West Coast, the one thing that stuck out to me was Tom Lynch took a mark maybe 15 metres out on a 45-degree angle. Pretty easy to a goal for him to kick. He ended up kicking 3 goals. He ended up having an okay game. But he took this mark and he just sort of lazily wandered back, and then he tried to just go around the corner very, very quickly. And West Coast playing knew he was going to do that and smother the ball. And to be fair, most people knew he was going to do exactly that, and he was going to smother the ball. So just lazy stuff like that, easy dropped marks, stuff like that we really need to tidy up for this week. Luckily this week, this game's actually in Queensland, so it's going to be good for the guys because they don't have to travel this week. They've only got to go an hour up the road to Brisbane, and that's where I think they might thrive being back in Queensland. They might thrive being back, sleeping in their own bed, getting their game preparation all right, because they're just going to be travelling up the road. So it is pretty much a home game. It's not a home game because it's not at Metricon, but it is a home game where they don't have to travel too far. There's no travel factor this week, especially because we got the 8-day break because we played on the Saturday and our game against Brisbane is the Sunday twilight game. So there is the most possible recovery time for us. So there's no excuses about us being tired or jaded from coming back from WA. So, players that I think I would bring back in this week. There's a couple of players that I am considering. As I said before, players like Riscatelli and Holman are two players that come to my mind that I would look at dropping. There's maybe one or two others, but I don't think I could. If I name those players, then I have to name a few more because there's probably 8 or 9 players that aren't playing to their best that could possibly be dropped. But there's no way in a game you get between games you'd be changing 8 or 9 players. So there are 2 spots. Looking at the NEAFL results on the weekend, our NEAFL team beat the GWS NEAFL team, which is usually pretty good. When two AFL teams play in the NEAFL, it usually ends up being a pretty good game. And we beat the GWS NEAFL team, which is a good effort. And the NEAFL team is having success. Well, Nick Malcheski, who is the NEAFL coach, is doing really, really good job to start with. So 2 players that there's 3 players I'd pick out, and you can pick 2 of these guys to put into the team. Now, the first one is Barlow. Barlow had 46 touches of the ball, and people are wondering, Sun supporters are wondering how he's not got into the team yet. He's a veteran player. He plays through the middle. He gets a lot of the ball, and he can bob up for a goal or 2. Now, the argument would be against him that he's not quick, and we completely understand that he's not quick, but he gives effort. He gives a bit of leadership out there, and Riscatelli, while he probably gives that leadership out there as well, his consistency and his ability and his fitness seem to be unsure, seem to be not that great. So I would do Riscatelli out for Barlow, and I would put Barlow in, and I reckon Barlow could do a bit of a job because in the middle, we've got Swallow, who's been absolutely amazing. Lyons, who's been really, really good as well in the middle. And they are 2 good to great midfielders. But after that, it drops off to a lot of players in the midfield that can put in a shift, like a Fiorini, like a Hall when he decides to put in effort. But we can't put in we haven't got that next level up. And while Barlow isn't that next level up, he's probably another one alongside Swallow and Lyons, who are good workhorses that will keep trying all day and you know what you're going to get from them. So I reckon definitely that is one switch I would make. Riscatelli out for Barlow. The second swap is I would take Holman out. Now, that's not to say I haven't appreciated Holman over his first 3 games and it's just one bad game, and I can understand why you don't want to drop a player after one bad game. But while he does offer tackling, and he definitely does, only 3 last week, that is his job, is to tackle. And if he's not doing his job of tackling, then he doesn't offer much else anywhere else in the ground. And that's why I think we should bring in someone like Will Brodie, who I don't have the stats in front of me for the NEAFL game, but something like 26 touches, a couple of marks, and he kicked 2 goals as well. So while Brodie might not tackle as much as Holman, so let's say Holman would get 9 tackles, Brodie might get 7 or 6, but he also offers his goal chance. He's good around the contest. He can get the ball. So I don't reckon taking out Holman for Brodie, I don't reckon we're losing too much. But there are other players too you could probably take. Miller might be one that you might want to think about taking out. He has not looked amazing. Ainsworth possibly has a concussion, so he might be one that might come out as well. So Holman might get a stay of execution. But at the moment, if Holman's not tackling, I don't know what else he's bringing. And that's my personal opinion. So, with that being said, my 2 changes I would make if Ainsworth is fit would be Holman and Riscatelli out, Brodie and Barlow in. Now, if you wanted to make a third change, someone like Jesse Lonergan, who played pretty well this week, would also be someone you would think about maybe putting in. He had about 26 touches. He didn't kick a goal, but he's coming towards the end of his contract, and I reckon you've got to give him a chance. You've got to give him a chance to prove himself. Give him a game or 2 in the ones to see how he goes. And I reckon you've got to reward good. You've got to reward good play. If he's getting 26, 27 touches in the NEAFL, he probably deserves at least a chance. 26 or 27 touches in the NEAFL against another AFL reserves team. I understand if the Gold Coast reserves team is beating up on a non-AFL team, and there might be a bit of discrepancy there. But if he's performing that well against other AFL reserve players, then I reckon you've got to give Jesse Lonergan a chance. And he could be a third player you'd put into. And with Brody, Barlow, and Jesse Lonergan coming in, automatically that midfield looks a lot more bigger, a lot more bolder, a lot stronger. And that might give us a harder edge to attack the Brisbane midfield, because one thing the Brisbane do have is when they're up and running, they have a very, very good midfield. Beams, Zorko, Christensen, Rayner played really well, but I think he's playing more of a forward. But they have got some quality. McCluggage is another one. They've got some quality that can go through that midfield, and that is one thing that the Lions definitely have. So if we're going to compete with the Lions, and I don't think our midfield can beat the Lions midfield, but we need to at least break even. And if we've got those bigger bodies in there, we can hopefully break even in the midfield, and then from there we can use our halfbacks like Weller and Harbrow to come up, use that pace and hit up our forward line, and hopefully hit the ball and dispose of it effectively for Tom Lynch and Sam Day up forward. Just the last quick one before I sort of wrap it up. Sam Day's another one that he had a really good game against Fremantle, and then he had a really, really poor game against West Coast. I'm not willing to throw Sam Day out yet, but he needs to. This is the week he needs to perform. He needs to have a good performance. That doesn't mean he needs to kick 5-6 goals. Sam Day's never gonna. I don't think he's ever gonna be a goal kick that's gonna kick you 6 goals. But he needs to create an option, lead up, take some marks, and if he can bob up with 2 goals, then I'll consider that's a good Sam Day game, because I think Peter Wright is due back this week. Now, he's probably going to end up playing an EFL game or two to get a bit of run the legs, because I don't think he's had much of a preseason as far as game time goes, whether it's over the JLT series or the practice games or the intra-club games. So Peter Wright is going to have to maybe have a game in the NEFL to get the run the legs. But as soon as he's fit and ready to go, if Sam Day's not performing, then Peter Wright is ready to step in. And as a forward, I reckon Peter Wright is a better quality forward than Sam Day. Sam Day is important because you can play him in the forward line, you can play him in the back line, you can move him around, but Peter Wright gives you that lead, and he can kick a bag, and he's got an absolutely amazing kick. He's such a good kick for goal for someone that's 200 centimetres. And I prefer a forward line of Lynch and a fully fit Peter Wright over a forward line of Lynch and Day. Now, who's to say in games where the conditions are good that you couldn't play Day, Wright and Lynch? You could play the 3 up forward if you think you can do that. But otherwise, if we're only going to play 2 key forwards, I think it's Lynch and Wright when they're fully fit. And Day either has to find a place in the back line, or he might find himself in the reserves. Anyway, the last thing I do before everyone is I give a prediction. I give a prediction at the end of the Sundown podcast about how we're going to go. And because I am a Sun supporter, I'm always going to tip us to win. Against Brisbane, I reckon we'll win. I actually reckon we'll win this game. And I said that when we went to the Fremantle game. I said there's a good chance we could win. If I did one of these before the West Coast game, I could have said we might win. We probably won't win. But this one we can win. We should win, and we need to win. And I reckon we win this game by 20 points. 20 points for the win for the Gold Coast in the Q Clash. I'm looking forward to watching the game, but at the same time I'm dreading the game, because I know what happens if we don't win. If we don't win, it looks really, really bad, and we look really, really poor, and players that are uncontracted that I'm not going to name start looking at other options. But if we win, we turn 5 rounds into the season, we turn 3-2, and we look okay. And then we've got Adelaide, and then we've got Adelaide up after that at Adelaide Oval. So I'm automatically going to tell you now, I'm probably not going to tip us to win that. As long as we're competitive in that game, I would take that. Then after that, we've got Melbourne at the Gabba, which Melbourne haven't been looking amazing, so we could do something there. Then we've got the Bulldogs in Melbourne, who are very hot and cold at the moment. They started off poorly, they've warmed up a bit, but who's not to say they might drop off between now and then? And that's a winnable game. We could win that game as well. And then I don't know who else we got. We got someone else, and then we obviously, our last game before the bye is the Port Adelaide game in China. So it's gonna be very interesting how we get on anyway. We need to win this game. We need to get 3 wins. And then if we can get 3 wins, then we can sneak another win before the bye. And if we go to the bye with 4 wins and 6 losses, or 4 wins and 7 losses, whatever it is, I will take that. I am fully understanding that we are not a finals team. I'm not thinking that we're going to make finals. But we need to, in my opinion, we need to avoid the bottom 4. We need to be pushing out of the bottom 4 and sort of pushing up towards the ladder, up towards the top of the ladder. With 2 first-round picks, we can bring in maybe another mature player that could give us a bit more grunt in the midfield, or we could use both those to bring in 2 really, really quality rookie draft picks. That this draft this year is supposed to be an absolutely super amazing draft. Having 2 first-rounders is great. We could trade one off. We can use them both. Who knows? But the goal this season for the Suns is to beat the bottom 4. And in my opinion, that is that. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening to the episode 3 of Sundown. I hope you enjoyed. Do let me leave me a comment below. How you think the Suns? What do you think the Suns' record at the end of the season is going to be? I think we're probably going to end up on 8 wins, so that would be 8 wins, 14 losses. And to be fair, 8 wins, 14 losses would be a pretty solid effort. Let me know what you think our record at the end of the season is going to be, and let me know in the comments below. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you later.